Welcome into CBS News 24/7. I'm Juliette Goodrich. We are watching your money and the markets this Monday as President Trump announces more tariffs this week in what he dubs Liberation Day. Plus, astronauts Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore, they speak out for the first time after their 9-month stay in space, how they're adjusting to life back on Earth. And it is the talk in Major League Baseball, torpedo bats, what they are and what are players saying about them. You're watching CBS News 24/7. We are watching Wall Street just days before President Donald Trump's so-called Liberation Day, when his reciprocal tariffs kick in. So the closing bell rang just moments ago. The Dow landed in the green. The S&P 500 also managed to lock in some gains despite earlier dipping into its lowest level since September. So let's take a look at our interactive stock market. The heat map brought to you by FinViz, showing you the top 500 stocks. So red indicating the stock is down. Green means it's up. CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady joining us live today. Kelly, certainly coming down to the wire with President Trump's announcement. So what does this mean for Americans and our wallets?
Yeah, well, it certainly could mean higher prices. I mean, that is sort of the big thing that we're expecting, because companies will have to determine how much of that tariff, if they are indeed paying it, are they going to pass on to consumers? And the other thing that it means, it's kind of more of an indirect impact, is if companies are looking to avoid those tariffs, they're going to be thinking about investing in manufacturing in the U.S. And that means potentially higher labor costs. That means building those factories in order to make products here. And that also means more investment, more dollars being spent. And ultimately, that's something that could also get passed on to the consumer. Maybe not immediately, but it's going to be very difficult for that company, whatever it may be, maybe one of the automakers, to sort of afford all of those billions of dollars at the same time when the consumers may be pulling back on some of that spending, Jules.
Yeah, so Kelly, Trump says that his plan will target all countries, but the details are still pretty unclear. So what does that all mean?
So that is really the question that investors are looking to answer right now. Really what they are looking for is clarity. And I mean, if you were watching the markets today, you saw it just sort of going up and down and up and down, especially after that big rout on Friday. And so what we are looking for on Wednesday is reciprocal tariffs. So tariffing in response to any country that has an import tax that affects American goods going into that country. Now, President Trump has said at different points it might be limited to what's called sort of the dirty 15. And those are the countries that have the highest tariff percentages on American goods. But then at the same time, over the weekend, kind of pulled some of that back and said maybe it would be all of the countries that tariff us. And so really, it's hard to answer your question because there is so much uncertainty right now. And we know that we are likely going to get an answer Wednesday, but that is why you have seen so much uncertainty in the markets. Not only do you have companies unsure, where to put their money, what countries to turn to, are they going to be ones that are tariffed, but you also have investors worrying that all of this anxiety that we have seen reflected in consumer confidence numbers could translate into a pullback in consumer spending. And that's really where we say, well, when the soft data turns into hard data, that's where we all have to worry. But right now, I guess the answer to your question is we're going to wait and see, Jules.
I know you always answer it so nicely, too. And I'm sure you're going to get that question so many times in the next couple of days until Wednesday. So we'll check back with you, too, many times before that. Kelly O'Grady, thank you. President Trump is back at the White House after spending the weekend in Mar-a-Lago. This morning, he sent a warning to the Iran-backed Houthi terrorists in Yemen and Truth Social. So CBS News White House correspondent Olivia Rinaldi joining us now. Olivia, thanks for being here. What is President Trump's message to the Houthis and Iran?
And Julia, it's good to be with you. This is just the latest threat we've seen from President Trump to those Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen. He wrote on Truth Social just a little bit ago, he said, our attacks will continue until they are no longer a threat, talking about the Houthis, no longer a threat to freedom of navigation. He said the choice for the Houthis is clear. Stop shooting at U.S. ships, and we will stop shooting at you. Otherwise, we have only just begun, and the real pain is yet to come for both the Houthis and their sponsors in Iran. Now, this comes as the U.S. has, of course, increased strikes against them pretty relentlessly over the last several weeks. Over the weekend, there were more strikes, including early Monday morning. And we heard from a spokesperson for the Houthis that said that this particular strikes killed about 3 people. So the U.S. is continuing to really ramp up attacks against them. But also you heard President Trump there at the end talk about Iran specifically. He has also increased that pressure campaign against them. He is looking to really stymie any effort by Iran to increase their ability to create a nuclear bomb. That's something that the president has said he is completely against. So we're seeing this increase of attacks not only against the Houthis, but him really training his focus as well on Iran.
Okay, we also learned today White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the White House closed the investigation into how Atlantic editor-in-chief Giuffre Goldberg got added to the Signal group chat. What are the details on that latest information?
Yeah, we did hear from Caroline Leavitt this morning on this. That's the White House press secretary, where she said that the White House considers this matter closed. We know that the National Security Council said last week, as all of this was unfolding, that they would continue to investigate it. We know that members of Congress, bipartisan members of Congress, have said that this needs to be investigated by the Inspector General of the Pentagon. We know there are legal ramifications. There are lawsuits being brought against the perhaps classified information that was shared within this group chat. Despite all of that, though, the White House says they consider this matter closed. They say President Trump has moved on from it. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz is still in his role, even though he was the one who allegedly added Giuffre Goldberg to that chat. But the White House saying, by and large, they're considering this a done deal. We actually have new CBS News polling on the matter, though, quite interesting over the weekend, that found the majority of Americans, including Republicans, found that it was unacceptable that classified information was shared on a Signal app, and it was very serious that this was even being used. But despite this polling finding that people found that it was inappropriate and amounted to something very serious, we also found that the majority of Republicans say that this particular situation is not impacting at all how they view Trump or this administration. So penetrated a little bit there, we saw into the public psyche, but by and large, the White House says this is a closed matter and they are moving on.
Olivia Rinaldi. Olivia, thank you. President Trump's billionaire advisor Elon Musk is zeroing in on the CIA today. An agency spokesperson said the CIA director John Ratcliffe invited Musk to meet with him to talk efficiency. So this comes as Musk's DOGE seeks to shrink the federal workforce. Earlier this month, Musk called for an overhaul of national security after a visit to the CIA. So a poll taken by CBS News and YouGov last week found that Americans are split on the Trump administration's efforts to shrink the federal workforce. 50% approve those efforts, while the other 50% disapprove. The divisions become more clear when broken down along party lines. 85% of Democrats believe reducing the federal workforce will impact programs they care about, compared to 62% of independents and 31% of Republicans. After a long stay on board the International Space Station, the SpaceX Crew 9 astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams spoke out about their expedition earlier this afternoon. The crew returned about 2 weeks ago, riding a SpaceX Dragon capsule back down to Earth. While on board, NASA astronaut Suni Williams set the spacewalk record for a woman. She says she's been doing well as she adjusts back to life on Earth.
Feeling good since we've been back almost 2 weeks now. Actually went out and ran 3 miles yesterday, so I will give myself a little pat on the back. Our trainers are rocking it and getting us ready to get back to help out with the new astronauts as they're getting ready for their mission.
She ran 3 miles. Wow. Also speaking, Butch Wilmore, who along with Williams conducted nearly 1,000 hours of research and 150 experiments in space.
This very difficult job that we take part in, it's a team sport. It encompasses organizations throughout NASA, throughout the country, coming together. The Commercial Crew Program, headquarters, the International Space Station program, working together day in and day out behind the scenes diligently to make all of this work together. And then you couple that with a nation that comes together and it cares about the human spaceflight program and prays for us and what's taking place. It goes beyond understanding, honestly.
The SpaceX 10 crew took over Wilmore and Williams' responsibilities March 13th. Elon Musk hands out million-dollar checks to voters in Wisconsin ahead of a closely watched election. So why is he doing this? We'll explain next. Plus, severe weather slams the U.S., bringing strong winds, hail, and heavy rain, and the danger is not over yet. We are tracking the storm next. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Powerful winds ripping through the roof of a mobile home in Jackson, Michigan, as severe storms slam the central U.S. The storm also bringing lightning and hail. This is video out of Kentucky. It shows hail just pounding the region last night. People woke up to buildings damaged or torn down in Illinois and Indiana. So far, authorities confirmed one weather-related death in Indiana and heavy rain flooding roads in Florida and Alabama. And the danger is not over yet. More storms are expected today along the East Coast. Our Nicole Valdez has the latest from Tennessee.
Well, some parts of the South are cleaning up from a terrifying night of storms, everything from torrential rain to large hail and strong winds, in some cases gusts up to 80 miles per hour here in Lexington, Tennessee. What's left behind, you'll notice, for some is a long cleanup ahead. This tree came crashing down onto at least one family's home. Inside, a mother, father, and their two children raced down into their basement just moments before this tree tore through their roof. This is just one of more than 500 storm reports that we've seen come in overnight, spanning across 10 states, as far south as Alabama and as far north as Michigan. But we know this is a multi-day threat. Today, millions of Americans who live along the East Coast will have to prepare to see much of the same threats later on throughout the day. Back to you.
Thank you, meteorologist Zoe Mintz joining me now. You are tracking some severe weather in those parts as well. So what's happening?
Well, let's take you onto the floor right now and show you what's happened over the past 8 hours or so, because it has definitely been a line of severe storms that moved across Alabama, like we showed you, that damage. Currently, it's making its way across parts of South Carolina and Georgia. Let's take that off and show you where the severe weather is currently taking place. All of that you see down in pink, let's move the camera down a little bit farther south. Those are areas that are currently severe thunderstorm watches, and then the areas that are in orange, those boxes, those are all severe thunderstorm warnings that are currently in effect. So yeah, severe weather currently taking place. And there is also a tornado warning just about 20 minutes ago. It's not confirmed right now. It was radar indicated, but either way, that severe weather threat will persist throughout this afternoon and early evening. As you can see, that severe weather threat all across the east coast of the United States. But then tomorrow, a multi-day severe weather threat will come into play, as we are going to be seeing a lot more widespread activity developing across the central part of the country. So this storm system, it's under my feet, that you will begin to see making its way over Kansas by tomorrow, and then over the Midwest and Mississippi Valley into Wednesday. So let's take a look and break down the exact details and the timing, because again, it's not just today that we're dealing with severe weather. We'll be dealing with it tomorrow and into Wednesday as well. Tuesday's threat will really mainly be over Kansas, especially over Wichita, and then heading over the Mississippi Valley and Midwest by the time that we step out Wednesday. So again, it's tomorrow evening that we'll really be dealing with the severe weather beginning to develop across the central parts of the country, spanning all the way up towards Green Bay, Wisconsin. We'll continue to have that severe weather threat pushing east through tomorrow afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, spanning from Chicago all the way down through St. Louis, including Memphis. And then we'll continue to see that line of severe weather developing over the Mississippi Valley, and then even heading across the northeastern part of the United States. So again, we are going to be dealing with 2 more days of severe weather after today. Tomorrow's threat for tornadoes, definitely the highest. Again, you can see that bullseye over Wichita, Kansas. This is going to be tomorrow afternoon, evening, and overnight. So keep those alerts on loud if you do live in these areas. And again, that severe weather threat threat continuing to push farther east. This will be Wednesday afternoon and evening, where a majority of the central part of the United States, the Mississippi Valley, all the way up to places like St. Louis, Chicago, Cincinnati, will be dealing with the severe weather threat Wednesday afternoon and evening. And once again, with overnight potential for severe weather, that's the most dangerous because people are sleeping, people aren't watching the television. So this is just the time to be prepared, keep those alerts on loud, and kind of have that preparedness kit just in case your power goes out.
Yeah, one eye open.
Exactly.
Overnight. All right, Zoe, thank you so much. Voters in Wisconsin head to the polls tomorrow to elect the next justice of that state's Supreme Court. The court's balance of power will shift on the results, and that's drawing national attention. Billionaire Elon Musk campaigned in Wisconsin yesterday and handed out $2 million checks to voters, urging them to support the conservative candidate, Brad Schimmel. Musk has donated more than $3 million to the state's Republican Party. So let's bring up our new TikTok tube. Our CBS News social team has been following this story, so let's check it out.
Wisconsin's highest court refused to hear a challenge to stop Elon Musk from giving out million-dollar checks to voters. He handed 2 of them out yesterday as part of a giveaway. You see one of them right here. Musk and his political action committee are campaigning against, quote, activist judges. You see, the state Supreme Court election is tomorrow, and the ideological control of that court is up for grabs. Right now, liberals hold a 4-3 majority.
Our social team has so much great content like this on our TikTok and Instagram pages, so follow us at the handle CBS News. To Arizona now, where the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell begins today. You may know her as the Doomsday Mom. She already faces life in prison for killing her 2 children. Now she's accused of plotting to kill her 4th husband. CBS News correspondent Andres Gutierrez has more.
Because Lori Vallow Daybell is representing herself in court, she will get to question the more than 200 potential jurors. 12 of them will decide her fate here in Arizona. This time, prosecutors allege that she conspired with her brother to kill her ex-husband, Charles Vallow, back in 2019. Her brother initially claimed he shot Charles in self-defense, but he died a few months later of natural causes. Vallow Daybell made headlines that same year when her children went missing. Their remains were later discovered on the Idaho property of her 5th husband, Chad Daybell. Both were convicted of multiple charges. She received a life sentence without parole in Idaho, and he received the death penalty. She was extradited to Arizona, where if she is convicted here, she faces at least 25 additional years on top of those current life sentences. She's also awaiting yet another trial for conspiring to kill her niece's ex-husband. She has pleaded not guilty. For this trial, the goal is to have a jury seated by the end of the week, so opening statements can begin on Monday, the 7th. I'm Andres Gutierrez in Phoenix, Arizona. Now back to you.
We follow our map now to New Mexico, where a judge hears arguments over whether to release body cam footage and other evidence in the deaths of Gene Hackman and his wife. Last month, the actor and his wife were found dead in their Santa Fe home. Autopsies show his wife died from a rare respiratory illness. About a week later, Hackman died of heart disease with complications from Alzheimer's. Representatives of the couple's estate want the judge to seal the evidence into the investigation to protect the family's privacy. To Michigan now, where a fire and possible explosion at an apartment building sent 12 people, including 6 kids, to the hospital. It happened around 4 a.m. this morning in West Detroit. The executive fire commissioner says when crews arrived, they saw people at the windows, quote, hanging off, ready to jump. Firefighters used ladders to rescue those people and put out the fire quickly. We jump the map to Louisiana now, where firefighters work to put out an oil tank fire near Livonia. That's about a 30-minute drive outside of Baton Rouge. A lightning strike during a severe storm this morning may be to blame for starting the fire. The sheriff says multiple fire departments are on the scene trying to control the flames and cool down the other tanks. President Trump's looming tariffs could push car prices even higher, and now business owners worry it could drive away customers next. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Virginia Roberts Giuffre, a woman who accused Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew of sex crimes, now says she is fighting for her life after a bus crash. Let's go to our breaking news correspondent, Chanel Call, in the CBS newsroom in New York for more. Chanel, tell us more. What happened?
All right, so in an Instagram post that we saw on Sunday, Virginia Giuffre appeared to look bruised. She says she's in kidney failure, adding that doctors gave her just 4 days to live. Today, Jules, her representative, says she suffered a serious accident and also confirms Giuffre is still receiving medical care in the hospital. Now, as for what happened, Giuffre alluded to this in this post. She says there was a crash with a school bus is what she's alluding to here. She says, important to note that when a school bus driver comes at you driving 110 kilometers as we were slowing for a turn, that no matter what your car is made of, it might as well be a tin can. So at this point, Jules, still unclear where the accident happened, but I can tell you that in 2022, the BBC reported that Giuffre lived in Australia with her husband and 3 children. I want to show you that Instagram post again because it goes on to say, I'm ready to go, just not until I see my babies one last time. But you know what they say about wishes. Just to give you some context and background here, Giuffre, she is one of the most prominent accusers of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Many people will remember her story. She alleged Epstein sexually trafficked her to Britain's Prince Andrew and others while she was a minor. Prince Andrew denied those claims.
Yeah, and Chanel, Giuffre actually sat down for an interview with CBS News back in 2020. So tell us more about her story when she shared that with us.
Yeah, in that interview with our Gail King, Giuffre spoke about how she says she first met Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. She claimed in that interview that Epstein's former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, was the mastermind behind the alleged sex trafficking. She also said, quote, she is a monster. She is worse than Epstein. She did things even worse than Epstein did. She was vicious. She was evil. And she's a woman, speaking about Maxwell. During that interview with Gail, Jules, Giuffre also claimed that Maxwell had video of other well-known people that she could incriminate.
All right, Chanel Call, thank you so much. Car tariffs are coming and the auto industry is bracing for impact. CBS News correspondent Karen Waugh talks to the owners of car dealerships who worry tariffs will push prices sky high and scare away customers.
So I spent the day talking to many used and new car dealerships in the Houston area, and many of these owners say they're concerned about the impacts of these tariffs. For a little bit of a timeline, President Trump says these tariffs on passenger vehicles and light trucks will go into effect this Thursday, April 3rd, and then his 25% tariff on auto parts from other countries, that'll go into effect by May 3rd, the latest. We're here at Liberty Auto in North Houston, where we spoke to the owner. His name is also Houston Baker. Take a listen at what he had to say.
Well, I'm concerned. Obviously, it'll affect new car dealers the most and most dramatically and soonest because of the cost of goods going up. But I'm afraid that it will apply inflationary pressure across the economy and make it more difficult for people to afford cars.
So Houston Baker says even though they sell used cars here, they still will feel that trickle-down effect from new car prices. He explains to me that historically, inflation has been bad for the auto industry as a whole, both for them as businesses and for buyers. So you think if car prices go up, naturally fewer buyers may come in if they can't afford these cars. And so he says, therefore, they make fewer sales as a business. And he says they've already been hurting in terms of sales for the past few months due to inflation. Now he worries these tariffs will make that pinch feel even harder. President Trump has said, quote, he couldn't care less about whether or not car prices go up. President Trump's goal, of course, is to get more consumers to buy American cars and to get more automakers to do their manufacturing, their car building here in the States. However, Houston Baker explains to us, even though there are some car brands like Chevy or Ford that may be built in the U.S., it's likely they still buy auto parts from other countries. So it'll be hard-pressed to find a company in the U.S. that is not affected, that is immune to these tariffs. So in the meantime, Houston Baker and his family here at Liberty Auto, they say they hope President Trump reverses these tariffs or changes his mind, but in the meantime, they are bracing for impact. Back to you.
Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Elon Musk has got to go!
Across the street from a Tesla dealership in Massachusetts, protesters rally against Elon Musk's role in the federal government. It's just one of hundreds of demonstrations outside Tesla showrooms across the U.S. this weekend, including in Utah, Texas, and Arizona. CBS News correspondent Tom Hansen tells us more about what the movement hopes to accomplish.
Hey there, we're standing outside of the Tesla showroom in downtown Manhattan. Definitely a much calmer scene here today than it was over the weekend, but you can see that the barricades are still up from those protests that happened on Saturday. Now, they didn't just happen here, they actually happened at some 200 plus showrooms across the country. We're talking about red states, we're talking about blue states, people showing up to express their distaste for how the government is being run when it comes to the Doge cuts and Elon Musk being at the helm. Now, this protest, which was really grassroots, spread across social media to galvanize support, get people out here, has three main objectives. One is to encourage Tesla owners to sell off their vehicles. Two is to encourage investors in Tesla to dump their stocks, and then, of course, three, for people to show up and express their distaste for how things are going. Some of the headwinds that Tesla has been experiencing in recent weeks, their stock price has dropped by about 50%. Now, it's hard to say if that is because entirely of this grassroots campaign or if it's because of the looming tariffs on vehicles. There are a number of things. There's a crowded market in the electric vehicle space as well. And so that could all be contributing to the drop in those stock prices. But no doubt Elon Musk facing some difficult headwinds when it comes to Tesla currently. And so these protests very much unwelcome. He actually took to X over the weekend after seeing some of these protests, and he posted a video of protesters confronting a Cybertruck. He wrote, quote, "It is time to arrest those funding the attacks. Arresting their puppets and paid foot soldiers won't stop the violence." Now, also, this comes on the heels of some targeted acts of vandalism against people who are driving Tesla vehicles. We have seen Tesla vehicles being spray painted. We even saw one that was a person hurled a Molotov cocktail toward the Tesla vehicle. Now, these are acts of vandalism that the federal government is not taking lightly at this point. Attorney General Pam Bondi saying that she is going to treat those acts of vandalism like acts of terrorism. And so that could come up with a penalty of about 20 years in prison for those who are carrying out those attacks. Definitely not a welcome turn of events for Tesla, for Doge, and for Elon Musk, but still much to be seen ahead of a critical week, potential car tariffs going into effect this week. Back to you.
President Donald Trump making headlines for alluding to running for a possible third term despite it not being constitutional.
I have had more people say, please run again. They said, we have a long way to go before we even think about that.
So we wanted to take a closer look at the constitutional limits around this idea. President Franklin Roosevelt is the only person to have served more than 2 terms in American history. Before this, presidents did not run for more than 2 terms because of a precedent set by George Washington. FDR felt that it was important to seek a 3rd term and then later a 4th because of the international and national instability caused by World War II. While some people in the Democratic Party raised concerns initially, he won his 3rd and 4th terms as president with over 80% of the electoral vote. 2 years after FDR's death in 1945, Republicans in Congress pushed forward a constitutional term limit amendment. The House and Senate passed those measures in 1947, and then it was ratified by the states in 1951. The 22nd Amendment plainly states no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. That means Trump is ineligible to be elected a 3rd time unless this amendment was overturned. It would take 2/3 of both congressional bodies and 3/4 of the state legislatures to overturn an amendment. Tonight, SpaceX set to launch a first-of-its-kind mission. We have details on the operation being led by a cryptocurrency billionaire. Next, you're watching CBS News 24/7. Google is shaking up the drug business with artificial intelligence. A startup backed by Google called Isomorphic Labs just announced $600 million in funding. Now the company races the competition to discover new treatments for you and me using AI. So let's bring in tech journalist Yasmin Coram to tell us all about this new one.
Yes, this is a juicy one.
Okay.
Google is betting big on AI when it comes to drug discovery. Now, Isomorphic Labs, startup out of Google's DeepMind venture, has raised $600 million from Thrive Capital, which, by the way, backs OpenAI. Isomorphic basically wants to accelerate drug discovery using AI. Right now, it takes about 10 to 15 years to discover a new drug, and most of it fails in clinical trials. So imagine a world where medicine isn't really developed in the labs through decades of trial and error. Google wants to expedite that from the lab, take it out, and put it into the laptop.
Speeding up the process.
Yes.
Safely. Fingers crossed.
We
Okay.
hope.
AI also playing a key role in Alzheimer's research. Tell me about that.
Yes, so this is really the best use case for AI, essentially sifting through massive amounts of data, in this case, Alzheimer's data, and being told what is valuable information. Now, speaking of Google, when you and I Google something, at the top of the results, it says AI overview, right? So, there's obviously some questions about its accuracy and whether it's being trained ethically. This is a huge step for Alzheimer's and breakthrough, whether there's going to be a cure at some point soon. Oxford said that the research has now grown 10 times using AI. Huge.
We do need the research. Okay, this one caught my ear. This is an interesting one, and people may have differing opinions on this. AI making its world into mental health. So what's the latest there? Counselors online, bots being used?
Therabots. We've talked about girlfriends and boyfriends and companions online. Now you might be able to have your therapist in your phone as a chatbot. Dartmouth, a study, says that they've gotten some pretty great results, positive results from patients using this new chatbot, patients who deal with depression, anxiety, and eating disorders, speaking to a therapist on your phone. Basically,
it's
like ChatGPT.
It's a quick resource if you need that help. Rather than waiting to make an appointment, you can get that information.
Absolutely. It makes them more accessible. Some people might not be able to afford a therapist.
Yes,
so
true.
It's a great option.
True. I am that person, though, when I'm trying to chat with the chat bot, I'm like, agent, because I want to talk to a real person. So I think some people may want to still have that human interaction, whether it's counseling or anything else like that.
Yes, I like to see my therapist.
Same. All right. Yasmin, thank you. All right. The Major League Baseball season just began, and it didn't take long for the Yankees to make headlines with their so-called torpedo bats. CBS News Pittsburgh's Chris Hoffman live from PNC Park in Pittsburgh, where the Pirates are going to host the Yankees in their home opener this Friday. So what are we talking about here? A torpedo bat?
Yeah, it's a really fancy term. Essentially what it's doing is making the barrel of the bat, that sweet spot, a little bit bigger by taking the mass that would be at the end of it and putting it in that barrel, thus giving a little bit more mass, a little bit more area to hit the ball. And when you get more mass in that area, you're able to hit the ball a little bit further. Thus why the Yankees were launching home runs at a darn near record pace there.
Interesting. Okay, so, all right, if that's the case, then why isn't everyone using these bats?
Yeah, that's a good question. You would think every player at this point would be trying to grab one of these to launch more home runs. Well, in speaking with one of the physicists we did today, they brought up a good point. Players can be very superstitious. When you're at this major league level, there's such a small room for error. You sometimes don't want to mess with what got you there. So that can, the way these bats are, even the smallest change, it does potentially change how a player would swing. And when you start tweaking that a little too much, it could distract and become more adverse to their playing style.
Okay, so you're holding that torpedo bat, clearly. Is there any difference in how it feels? Or, do you feel like you can get up there and kill it tonight if you were playing?
Well, I wish this was one of those. This is just a little wiffle ball bat to try to demonstrate what a normal bat would look like and what a torpedo. Yeah, just the fun props. But from the way it's explained, it does sound like it's a way baseball players are trying to take advantage of being pitched inside and try to turn and turn some of those fastballs into home run. But one of the sports physicists we spoke to today says, don't be surprised, though, if the game has a habit of evening out. Maybe players will now start pitching more to the outside because of these bats having so much focus on the barrel, players might pitch away. So like anything in sports, there's a way of evening this out over time.
Okay, Chris, no judgment that's a wiffle ball bat. Very good explanation. Appreciate it.
Yes.
And thanks so much. All right, have a good one. Tonight, a Novice International crew led by a Bitcoin billionaire is scheduled to launch on a mission to orbit the North and South Poles. It's the first human mission to do so. CBS News senior national correspondent Mark Strassman has a preview.
I think some of the words I'm most looking forward to are, you are go for launch.
To glimpse humankind's adventuring spirit, meet Fram2's international crew. It's financier Chun Wang, a Bitcoin mining billionaire. His crew, all extreme adventurers. Rabia Rogi, a German robotics researcher. Janneke Mikkelsen, a Norwegian cinematographer, and Eric Phillips, an Australian polar guide, a veteran of more than 30 polar expeditions, now improbably all heading to space.
How did you get the invitation?
I believe it was a WhatsApp message at the time.
And Janneke thought I was a scammer.
I did.
Not a scammer. The offer was real.
It's been a crazy dream of mine as far back as I can remember, and then somehow it's now a reality.
The mission's inspired by and named after the 19th century Norwegian adventuring ship Fram. It explored both of Earth's poles more than 100 years ago. Fram2's crew has trained for nearly a year. Flying about 270 miles up, their Dragon spacecraft will orbit Earth's poles 55 times over the 3.5-day mission. They'll conduct more than 20 experiments, and a nearly 4-foot-wide domed window will give them views of the icy terrain below.
No humans have ever been in a polar orbit previously.
And that's intriguing to you?
Absolutely.
We're pitting our skills and our experience against a very unforgiving environment.
The crew will orbit with a piece of the original Fram ship as inspiration. But that crew could never have imagined this crew's Falcon 9 rocket.
When you start feeling Falcon, you know, breathing, moving, coming alive.
And the pioneering spirit also coming alive, that's timeless. Mark Strassman, CBS News, at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
We want to show you this video. We're tracking severe weather all around the country, so take a look at this. We just got some new video. This is a high school in Alabama. It was hit by a suspected tornado. This is while students were inside, so you can see them actually filing out. Let's see, there's some video that's going to show them actually filing out of the area there. It happened at Dothan Prep Academy in Dothan, Alabama. So our local affiliate reports a roof fell on some students. They all had minor injuries, but 2 of them had to be treated at a hospital. Damage was also reported at other areas of Dothan. Nurses in China rushed to save newborn babies after a powerful earthquake hit Southeast Asia. The latest on recovery efforts and the search for survivors next. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Search and rescue efforts in Myanmar continue following the devastating 7.7 magnitude earthquake. The death toll surged past 1,700 and is expected to go up. Friday's quake was also felt in China. Video into our monitors show the moment 2 nurses at a hospital's maternity center had to rush in to protect newborn babies. CBS News' Anna Corrin explains rescuers are running out of time to save survivors.
Lying on his stomach, aided by torchlight, the rescuer detects signs of life. It's been days since a deadly earthquake struck Myanmar, but remarkably, this woman is lifted out of the rubble unscathed. She was among a handful of survivors to be rescued, along with this man, sandwiched between slabs of concrete.
Hello.
But they are the lucky ones, as building after building in Myanmar's second-largest city, Mandalay, and beyond, lie in ruins. Damaged roads, bridges and downed power lines have made it impossible for rescue teams to reach communities in this impoverished country. Engulfed by 4 years of civil war since the military junta seized power in a coup. Hours after the earthquake, reports the junta carried out airstrikes in rebel-controlled areas that had also been impacted, adding to the misery. So far, China, Russia and India have responded with humanitarian aid and teams on the ground, along with other regional neighbours. President Trump said the US will be helping. But once the face of international disaster relief, the US government's cuts to USAID and State Department programs could be felt acutely by Myanmar's earthquake victims, in a country now grappling with a humanitarian crisis. Meanwhile, in Thailand, hope is fading at the construction site, where dozens of workers were buried when the skyscraper collapsed moments after the earthquake hit. Rescue crews, with the help of cadaver dogs, continue to retrieve bodies as families keep vigil, refusing to lose faith their loved ones will be found alive. Anna Corrin, CBS News, Hong Kong.
3 missing American soldiers were found dead in an armored vehicle pulled from a swampy area in Lithuania. The soldiers were on a tactical training exercise when they and the vehicle were reported missing on Tuesday. 1 soldier is still missing. They were found near the border with Belarus after a 6-day effort by U.S., Lithuanian and Polish forces. Lithuania hosts more than 1,000 American troops. At least 5 people are dead and 4 more are hurt after a mine accident in the north of Spain. 2 helicopters and 2 ambulances were used to bring the injured to hospitals. Local leaders declared 2 days of mourning in honor of the victims. The Spanish Prime Minister expressed condolences to the victims' families on X. Mexican armed forces seized approximately 1.8 tons of cocaine off the coast of Guerrero State. 5 people were detained and 290 gallons of oil were also seized. Mexican authorities say this was one of the most significant seizures in recent years. A criminal court found French far-right politician Marine Le Pen guilty of misusing European Union funds. Judges sentenced her to 4 years in prison and immediately barred her from running for public office over the next 5 years. Our foreign correspondent Elaine Cobb is in Paris reporting on what comes next.
Far-right leader Marine Le Pen says she will appeal her conviction for embezzling public funds. The court today handed her a 4-year prison sentence and barred her from seeking public office for the next 5 years, dashing her dream of being France's next president. The appeal will not change that ban, which goes into effect immediately. Le Pen's lawyer called the court decision scandalous and a blow to democracy. Her National Rally Party spokesman said the 56-year-old politician is in fighting mood as far-right leaders from Hungary, Italy and the Netherlands sent messages of support. She and 8 other party members were found guilty of using EU funds to pay party staffers in Paris. Her 4-year sentence includes 2 suspended and 2 years wearing an electronic bracelet. She was also fined more than $100,000. Le Pen lost the race for the presidency in 2022, but she took 41% of the vote, the highest the far-right party has ever won. She badly wanted to run again in 2027, but it's too late now. Instead, she will have to sacrifice her own ambitions if she wants to see the party, founded by her father, Jean-Marie Le Pen, take the highest office in the land. Waiting in the wings is party president Jordan Bardella, who is tipped to step into her shoes and become the candidate in 2 years' time. Winning power for the National Rally Party has been Marine Le Pen's lifelong work. It will not be easy for her now to step out of the limelight and into the shadows. Back to you.
America Decides with Major Garrett is next. Tomorrow, a special election will determine whether conservatives or liberals control the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. The outcome could have a big impact on issues like abortion rights and voting rights in the state. We'll break it all down. You're watching CBS News 24/7.